I was in Kenya watching lions when something hit me. A single lioness stared down 3 hyenas trying to steal her cub's food. She didn't roar, didn't fight. She just stood there with this unshakable confidence. Those hyenas backed down from her presence alone. That's when I realized confidence isn't about what you do, it's about who you know you are. My friend, if you've ever felt like there's something powerful sleeping inside you, but you can't seem to wake it up, this message is for you. If you've ever walked into a room and felt invisible when you know you have something valuable to contribute, this is your moment. If you've ever had a dream so big it scared you, but you pushed it down because you didn't think you were qualified, then what I'm about to share will change everything. For over 40 years, I've studied leadership, mentored kings and presidents, traveled to over 100 nations, and discovered this truth. Every person who changed their world first changed their mind about who they were. I've sat with billionaires and beggars, with royalty and refugees, and I can tell you this. The difference between those who rise and those who remain stuck has nothing to do with their circumstances and everything to do with their consciousness. You see, most motivational speakers tell you to fake it till you make it. That's backwards thinking. I'm going to show you how to discover what's already there. You don't need to become a lion. You need to remember that you already are one. This isn't about putting on a mask. It's about taking one off. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about uncovering who you've always been. The problem isn't that you lack power. The problem is that you've forgotten your nature. You've been living like prey when you were designed to be a predator. Not to hurt others, but to dominate your fears, conquer your doubts, and rule your own life. You've been surviving when you were created to thrive. You've been existing when you were meant to live. You've been reacting when you were designed to respond. By the end of our time together, you'll walk differently, talk differently, and think differently. Not because I gave you something new, but because I helped you find something that was always yours. You'll understand why you've been settling for less and how to demand more, not from life, but from yourself. You'll discover why presence is more powerful than performance, why identity trumps ability, and why knowing who you are is more important than knowing what to do. Let me tell you about the circus lion. I heard this story years ago and it changed my perspective forever. There was a magnificent lion born in captivity, raised in a circus from birth. This wasn't just any lion. He was descended from the kings of the jungle with a bloodline of champions flowing through his veins. But he never knew this because all he had ever known was the circus. Every day, this powerful creature would perform tricks for crowds. He would jump through hoops of fire, balance on balls, sit on little pedestals when the trainer cracked his whip, and eat scraps of meat thrown to him like rewards. The crowds would applaud, children would point and stare, and the lion thought this was his purpose. He never questioned it because this was all he knew. The trainers had convinced him that he was dependent on them for everything, his food, his shelter, his very survival. They had programmed him to believe that without them he would die. They had conditioned him to respond to the crack of a whip, to the sound of their voice, to their approval or disapproval. He lived for their validation and feared their rejection. One day, the circus was traveling through Africa when the truck carrying the animals broke down near the Serengeti. The repairs would take several hours, so the animals remained in their cages under the vast African sky. For the first time in his life, the circus lion was in the land of his ancestors, breathing the air his bloodline was meant to breathe. As night fell, he could hear something in the distance. It was a sound he'd never heard before, yet somehow it felt familiar. It started as a low rumble, then grew into a mighty roar that seemed to shake the very earth. It was the roar of wild lions, free lions, lions who had never known a cage or a whip or a trainer's command. As that sound echoed across the plains, something stirred deep inside him. His heart began to race, his muscles tensed. Every fiber of his being responded to that call. For the first time in his life, he realized he wasn't just an entertainer. He was a king. He wasn't just a performer. He was a predator. He wasn't just surviving. He was meant to rule. That night, as the sound of freedom called to him again and again, the circus lion began to remember, not with his mind but with his DNA, not with his training but with his instinct. He remembered what it felt like to be powerful. He remembered what it meant to be feared and respected. He remembered that he was not created to jump through hoops for the amusement of others. The transformation didn't happen instantly. First came the awareness, the recognition that he was more than what he had been told. Then came the anger, the righteous indignation at having been deceived about his nature for so long. Then came the decision, the choice to no longer accept limitations that were never meant for him. That night, the circus lion broke free, not through violence or force, but simply by remembering who he was. The locks that had held him seemed weak now because he understood they had only worked while he believed he needed them. The cage that had contained him felt small because he realized it had only held him while he thought it was protecting him. The fear of the trainers disappeared because he discovered that their power over him had only existed in his mind. He walked into the wild and claimed his rightful place as the king of the jungle. The other animals recognized him immediately, not because of what he did, but because of who he was. His presence commanded respect. His walk declared authority. His very being announced royalty. My friend, you are that lion. Somewhere along your journey, you got trapped in a circus of other people's expectations, society's limitations, and your own fears. You've been jumping through hoops, performing tricks, and sitting on pedestals when the trainer of life cracks his whip. You've been living for applause from people who will never understand your true nature. You've been accepting scraps when you were meant to feast like a king, but today you're going to hear your own roar again. Today you're going to remember that the DNA of greatness flows through your veins. Today you're going to realize that you were not created to entertain others with small living. You were created to inspire them with authentic greatness. How do we break free from our own circus? It starts with understanding who you really are. You see, the difference between a circus lion and a wild lion isn't breeding or genetics, it's consciousness. One knows he's entertainment, the other knows he's royalty. One performs for approval, the other commands respect by simply being present. One lives for the crowd, the other lives for the calling. The circus lion measures success by the volume of applause. The wild lion measures success by the authenticity of his roar. The circus lion waits for permission to move. The wild lion moves because he has authority. The circus lion fears the trainer's whip. The wild lion fears nothing because he understands his own power. Which lion are you living as today? Are you waiting for someone else to give you permission to be great? Are you performing for approval instead of living from authority? Are you letting other people's opinions of you become your opinion of yourself? This brings me to another story that most people get wrong. You know the story of David and Goliath. Everyone talks about how brave David was, how courageous he was to face the giant. Preachers preach about it, motivational speakers reference it, movies are made about it. But I want to tell you something that will revolutionize how you see this story. David wasn't brave. David was just being himself. Let me paint the picture for you. The armies of Israel had been in a standoff with the Philistines for 40 days. Every morning, this giant named Goliath would come out and challenge anyone from Israel's army to fight him. He was over 9 feet tall, covered in armor, carrying weapons that most men couldn't even lift. His voice alone struck terror into the hearts of grown warriors. For 40 days, not one soldier from Israel's army would face him. These were trained fighters, experienced warriors, men who had seen battle before. But they looked at Goliath and saw impossibility. They looked at his size and felt small. They looked at his armor and felt vulnerable. They looked at his weapons and felt outmatched. Then David shows up. He's not even a soldier. He's a shepherd boy bringing lunch to his brothers. He hears Goliath's challenge and asks, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" Notice he didn't say, "Who is this giant?" He said, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine?" He defined Goliath not by his size, but by his relationship to God. When David volunteered to fight Goliath, King Saul tried to dress him in armor. But David said, "I can't wear this because I haven't tested it." Instead, he took his sling and 5 smooth stones, the same tools he used every day as a shepherd. Why? Because David wasn't trying to become someone different to face this challenge. He was simply being who he already was. You see, David had been preparing for this moment his whole life without even knowing it. As a shepherd, he had protected his flock from lions and bears. He had already proven to himself that he could face predators much larger than himself. To David, Goliath wasn't a unique challenge. He was just another predator threatening what David was called to protect. When David walked onto that battlefield, he wasn't operating in fear or false courage. He was operating in confidence born from experience. He knew his God, he knew his abilities, and he knew his assignment. He had clarity about who he was and what he was called to do. The giant fell not because David was brave, but because David knew who he was. He was a shepherd, a protector, a man after God's own heart, someone who had been anointed for greatness, even though he was still tending sheep. He didn't see himself as small. He saw the giant as out of place. When you know your identity, giants become opportunities, not obstacles. Everyone else saw David as a boy facing a giant. David saw himself as a lion facing a problem. That's the difference between living in your circumstances and living in your identity. Circumstances change when identity is clear. Problems shrink when purpose is strong. Giants fall when you know who you are and whose you are. But how do giants fall when you stand in your truth? It's simple. Giants are intimidating only to people who don't know their own strength. When you understand who you are, what seems impossible to others becomes inevitable to you. David didn't defeat Goliath with a stone. David defeated Goliath with certainty. The stone was just a delivery method. Here's what most people miss about this story. David's confidence didn't come from the fact that he had never lost a battle. David's confidence came from the fact that he knew he was fighting for something bigger than himself. He wasn't defending his own reputation. He was defending God's reputation. He wasn't protecting his own honor. He was protecting his nation's honor. When you're fighting for something greater than yourself, you discover strength you never knew you had. This is why so many people remain paralyzed by their giants. They're focused on what they have to lose instead of what they have to gain. They're thinking about their reputation instead of their responsibility. They're worried about what people will think instead of what God has called them to do. But when you shift your perspective from self-preservation to service, from personal comfort to divine calling, from your own glory to God's glory, giants become stepping stones to your destiny. Every giant you face is actually an invitation to discover more of who you really are. This brings us to one of my favorite stories, the eagle raised with chickens. A farmer found an eagle's egg that had fallen from its nest and placed it in his chicken coop. The eaglet hatched alongside the chicks and grew up thinking he was a chicken. Day after day, he would peck at grain in the dirt, scratch around the yard, and stay close to the ground like all the other chickens. He learned to cluck like a chicken, eat like a chicken, think like a chicken, and limit himself like a chicken. When the chickens would attempt short flights from the ground to a low branch, he would do the same, never flying higher than a few feet. He accepted this as normal because it's all he had ever known. The other chickens accepted him as one of their own, even though he was obviously different. He was larger, stronger, more majestic in appearance. But because he acted like them, they treated him like he belonged with them. And because they treated him like he belonged with them, he believed that he did. One day, a naturalist visited the farm and saw this magnificent bird among the chickens. His trained eye immediately recognized what the farmer had missed. "That's not a chicken," he told the farmer. "That's an eagle, the king of birds, created to soar in the heights, born to rule the skies." The farmer laughed. "Look at him. He acts like a chicken, eats like a chicken, thinks like a chicken. He's lived with chickens all his life. He is a chicken." The farmer had confused behavior with identity, performance with nature, conditioning with creation, but the naturalist knew better. He had studied eagles. He knew their characteristics, their capabilities, their calling. He could see past the current behavior to the original design. He asked to borrow the eagle for a few days to prove his point. The naturalist took the bird to a high place and said, "You are an eagle. You belong to the sky, not the earth. You were created to soar above the storms, not scratch beneath them. Stretch forth your wings and fly." But the eagle looked down at the chickens below and jumped down to join them. The pull of familiarity was stronger than the call to destiny. The naturalist wasn't discouraged. He understood that transformation takes time. especially when someone has been conditioned to live below their potential for so long. Identity crisis doesn't resolve overnight. Years of wrong thinking can't be corrected with one conversation. Undeterred, the next morning the naturalist took the eagle to the top of a mountain just as the sun was rising. He held the eagle toward the brilliant light and spoke again. Eagle, you are an eagle. You belong to the sky, not the earth. You were created for the heights, not the depths. You were born to be above, not beneath. Stretch forth your wings and fly. As the eagle stared into the sun, something stirred within him. The light seemed to awaken something deep in his DNA. He began to tremble, not from fear, but from recognition. For the first time in his life, he felt the pull of his true nature. He felt the call of the heights. He sensed the vast expanse of sky that was meant to be his domain. Slowly, hesitantly, he stretched his wings. They were massive, powerful, designed for flight. As he spread them wide, he could feel the wind catch beneath them. He could sense the lift, the possibility, the freedom that had always been available to him but never accessed. With a mighty screech that seemed to come from the very depths of his being, he launched himself into the sky. Higher and higher he soared, riding the wind currents with a grace that seemed impossible just moments before. He circled the mountain, then flew beyond it, never to return to the chickens again. In that moment of recognition and response, everything changed. The limitations he had accepted as normal revealed themselves to be artificial. The boundaries he had respected as permanent showed themselves to be temporary. The identity he had embraced as true exposed itself as false. My friend, you are that eagle. Your environment has convinced you that you're a chicken, but your DNA tells a different story. The people around you may see you as ordinary because they've only seen you operate in ordinary circumstances, but you were not created to scratch in the dirt of mediocrity. You were created to soar in the realm of possibility. The moment you recognize your true nature, everything changes. The moment you stop accepting other people's limited opinion of you as the final word about you, everything shifts. The moment you choose to believe God's original design for your life over life's attempt to redesign you, everything transforms. But here's what I need you to understand. Recognition is not enough. The eagle could have stared at the sun all day without ever flying. Awareness without action is just sophisticated procrastination. You can know who you are without ever becoming who you're meant to be. You can understand your potential without ever fulfilling it. The difference between the eagle and the chickens wasn't just DNA, it was decision. The eagle had to choose to leave the familiar ground and trust his wings. He had to risk everything comfortable for something possible. He had to trade the security of the known for the adventure of the unknown. That's the choice before you right now. You can continue living like a chicken because it's safe, predictable, and accepted by others. Or you can spread your wings, catch the wind of God's purpose for your life, and discover what it means to truly fly. Now, let me share something personal with you. There was a moment in my own life when everything shifted. I was a young man full of dreams but paralyzed by fear. I had ideas but no confidence. I had vision but no voice. I had purpose but no power. I was living like that circus lion, that chicken-minded eagle, that David before he faced his giant. I grew up in the Bahamas, and like many young men from small islands, I was conditioned to think small. People would say things like, "Who do you think you are?" and "Stay in your place," and "Don't get too big for your britches." Well-meaning family members and friends were actually programming me for mediocrity in the name of humility and protection. I had dreams of speaking to nations, of writing books that would impact millions, of mentoring leaders who would change the world. But these dreams seemed so big compared to where I was that I began to doubt them. I started to think maybe I was being presumptuous. Maybe I was being prideful. Maybe I should just settle for a nice, quiet, normal life. I remember the exact moment my life changed. I was sitting in my room, feeling sorry for myself, rehearsing all the reasons why I couldn't succeed, when I heard a voice, not audible but clear, say to me, "Myles, stop asking me to bless what you're doing and start doing what I've already blessed." That simple sentence revolutionized my understanding of God's will and my role in it. I realized I had been living backwards. I was asking God to approve of my small plans instead of stepping into his big purpose for my life. I was asking him to bless my limited vision instead of embracing his unlimited vision for me. I had been treating God like a cosmic vending machine, putting in my prayers and hoping to get out his approval for my safe choices, but he was calling me to understand that he had already blessed certain things in my life before I was even born. My gifts were blessed, my calling was blessed, my purpose was blessed, my assignment was blessed. I just needed to stop asking for permission and start taking responsibility. That day, I stopped being a victim of my circumstances and became the author of my destiny. I stopped asking for permission to be great and started taking responsibility for the greatness already inside me. I stopped waiting for someone else to validate my dreams and started validating them myself through obedience to the call I felt in my spirit. That's what I learned that changed everything. You don't become who you're supposed to be, you discover who you already are. You don't develop gifts that don't exist. You develop gifts that have always existed but have been dormant. You don't create a purpose for your life. You uncover the purpose that was embedded in you before you took your first breath. This brings me to the first principle every lion must understand. Lions don't compare, they compete. There's a huge difference between these two mentalities. And understanding this difference will determine whether you spend your life as a spectator or a champion. When you compare yourself to others, you're looking sideways. Your focus is on what they have that you don't have, what they can do that you can't do, where they are that you're not. Comparison always leads to one of two equally destructive emotions, pride or insecurity. If you think you're better than them, you become prideful. If you think they're better than you, you become insecure. Either way, you lose. But when you compete, you're looking forward. Your focus is on becoming the best version of yourself, on maximizing your own potential, on fulfilling your own purpose. Competition is not about beating others. It's about not being beaten by your own limitations, fears, and excuses. Comparison kills confidence because you're always measuring yourself against someone else's highlight reel while knowing your own behind-the-scenes struggles. You see their success but not their struggle. You see their victory but not their sacrifice. You see their breakthrough but not their breakdown. This creates a distorted perspective that makes you feel inadequate when you're actually exactly where you need to be for where you're going. Social media has made this comparison trap even more dangerous. People post their best moments and hide their worst moments. They share their victories and conceal their defeats. They show you their mountaintops and hide their valleys. If you're not careful, you'll start believing that everyone else is winning while you're losing. Everyone else has it figured out while you're still figuring it out. Everyone else is blessed while you're still waiting for your blessing. But competition is different. Competition says, I'm running my race in my lane toward my destiny. A lion doesn't watch what the cheetah is doing and feel bad about not being fast enough. A lion doesn't look at the elephant and feel insecure about not being big enough. A lion doesn't observe the giraffe and feel inadequate about not being tall enough. A lion focuses on being the best lion he can be. Why does comparison destroy us? Because it makes us focus on what we lack instead of what we have. It makes us question our own uniqueness instead of celebrating it. It makes us doubt our own journey instead of trusting it. When you're constantly looking at what others are doing, you lose sight of where you're going. Your lane versus their lane mentality is crucial. God didn't create you to be a copy of someone else. He created you to be an original. Your fingerprints are unique. No one else in the history of humanity has ever had or ever will have your exact fingerprints. Your DNA is unique. You are genetically one of a kind. Your purpose is unique. There's something God wants to do through you that He doesn't want to do through anyone else. So why are you trying to live someone else's life? Why are you trying to fulfill someone else's purpose? Why are you measuring your success by someone else's standards? You're competing in a race that isn't even yours, trying to win a prize that wasn't meant for you, using energy that should be invested in your own assignment. How do you find your unique roar? You stop trying to sound like everyone else. A lion's roar can be heard 5 miles away, not because it's loud, but because it's authentic. It comes from deep within. It's not an imitation of another lion's roar. It's the expression of his own power, his own authority, his own nature. Your voice, your gift, your contribution to this world is unlike anyone else's. But you'll never find it while you're busy imitating others. You'll never discover your own sound while you're trying to echo someone else's song. You'll never develop your own style while you're copying someone else's success formula. Once you stop looking sideways, you can focus forward. Energy spent on comparison is energy stolen from creation. Energy spent watching what others are doing is energy that could be used to build what you're supposed to build. Time spent studying their progress is time that should be invested in making your own progress. Your competition isn't other people. Your competition is the version of yourself that settled for less than you were created for. Your competition is the you that makes excuses instead of taking action. Your competition is the you that chooses comfort over calling, security over significance, approval over authenticity. This leads us to the second principle, territory consciousness. Lions understand their domain and jurisdiction. They know where they belong and they mark their territory. This isn't about being territorial in a negative sense. It's about understanding your area of responsibility and influence. In the wild, a lion's territory can span anywhere from 20 to 400 square miles, depending on the availability of prey and water. The lion knows every inch of this territory. He knows where the boundaries are, where the resources are, where the dangers lurk, where the opportunities exist. He patrols this territory regularly, not out of paranoia, but out of responsibility. Why do lions mark their territory? Because boundaries create security. When you know what's yours to protect, defend, and develop, you can focus your energy effectively. Without boundaries, you'll spread yourself too thin, trying to be everything to everyone, trying to influence everything, trying to control what's not yours to control. Territory isn't just physical space. It's also emotional, spiritual, intellectual, and relational space. You need to understand what's your responsibility and what's not. You need to know what you can control and what you can't. You need to recognize what's your battle and what's not your fight. How do you establish boundaries in your life? You start by understanding your calling, your gifts, and your assignment. God has given every person a sphere of influence, a domain of responsibility, a territory to rule. You can't be responsible for everything, but you are responsible for something. What is your something? Maybe your territory is your family. Your responsibility is to create a legacy of love, values, and purpose for your children and grandchildren. Maybe your territory is your business. Your responsibility is to create products or services that solve problems and add value to people's lives. Maybe your territory is your ministry. Your responsibility is to speak truth and bring healing to hurting people. Maybe your territory is education. Your responsibility is to equip the next generation with knowledge and wisdom. Maybe your territory is the arts. Your responsibility is to create beauty that inspires and elevates the human spirit. Maybe your territory is technology. Your responsibility is to innovate solutions that make life better for humanity. The key is knowing what's yours and focusing on that. You can't rule everywhere, but you can rule somewhere. You can't influence everyone, but you can influence someone. You can't change everything, but you can change something. The power of knowing where you belong cannot be overstated. When you know your place, you're not threatened by other people's success in their place. You can celebrate their victories because their success doesn't diminish your potential for success. There's room for everyone to win when everyone stays in their lane. When you know your assignment, you're not distracted by opportunities that aren't meant for you. Every opportunity is not your opportunity. Every door that opens is not your door. Every invitation is not your invitation. Knowing your territory helps you say no to good things so you can say yes to great things. When you know your territory, you can rule it effectively. You can develop it, improve it, maximize it. You can become the undisputed authority in your domain. You can build something significant instead of spreading yourself thin across multiple insignificant things. Territory isn't just about what you control. It's also about what controls you. You have the right to say no to things that don't align with your purpose. You have the right to protect your energy, your time, and your attention. You have the right to choose who has access to your mind and your heart. Some people will try to invade your territory with their opinions, their drama, their negative energy, their small thinking. But you're the king or queen of your domain. You get to decide what crosses your boundaries and what doesn't. You get to determine what influences you and what doesn't. You get to choose what you allow into your territory and what you keep out. But having territory means nothing if you don't have the third element, the presence factor. This is what I observed in that lioness in Kenya. She didn't have to roar or fight because her presence alone communicated power. Presence trumps performance every single time. Let me explain the difference between presence and performance. Performance is what you do. Presence is who you are. Performance can be faked. Presence cannot. Performance is external. Presence comes from within. You can act confident, but you can't act present. You either are or you aren't. Think about people who command attention when they walk into a room. They're not necessarily the loudest people or the most talkative people. They're not trying to be noticed, but somehow everyone notices them. That's presence. They have an inner authority that communicates itself without words. Presence is magnetic. People are drawn to it even when they can't explain why. Presence is convincing. It makes people believe in you before you even speak. Presence is influential. It changes the atmosphere of wherever you are. What's the difference between confidence and presence? Confidence is believing in your ability to handle whatever comes your way. Presence is knowing that you belong wherever you are and that you have something valuable to contribute. Confidence is about performance. Presence is about purpose. How do you develop unshakable inner authority? You start by getting your identity from the right source. If your sense of worth comes from what people think about you, you'll always be insecure because people are fickle. If your identity comes from what you accomplish, you'll always be anxious because achievements are temporary. But if your identity comes from who God says you are, you become unshakable because God doesn't change his mind about you. There's a difference between the science of confidence and the spirit of confidence. Science tells us that body language affects how we feel and how others perceive us. That's true. When you stand tall, you feel more confident. When you make eye contact, you appear more trustworthy. When you speak clearly, you sound more authoritative. These are helpful techniques. But the spirit of confidence goes deeper. It comes from knowing that you're here on purpose, for a purpose, with a purpose. It comes from understanding that your life is not an accident. Your gifts are not coincidental. Your calling is not random. You were created intentionally by a God who doesn't make mistakes. Walking with purpose versus walking with anxiety, you can see the difference immediately. Purpose walks with direction. It knows where it's going. Anxiety walks with hesitation. It's unsure of every step. Purpose takes up space. It belongs. Anxiety tries to shrink. It apologizes for existing. Purpose looks forward. It's focused on the destination. Anxiety looks around for approval. It's focused on other people's opinions. When you understand your purpose, you carry yourself differently. Your posture changes because your perspective changes. Your voice changes because your conviction changes. Your presence changes because your identity changes. Now let me show you how these three principles work together in real life. When you stop comparing and start competing, you find your lane. When you understand your territory, you know what lane you're competing in. When you develop presence, you dominate that lane not through force, but through authentic authority. Think about someone you respect, someone who commands attention not through volume, but through presence. Maybe it's a teacher who could quiet a classroom with just a look. Maybe it's a CEO who could influence a boardroom with just their wisdom. Maybe it's a parent who could guide their family with just their example. Maybe it's a pastor who could move a congregation with just their authenticity. What do they all have in common? They're not trying to be someone else. They've stopped comparing and started competing with their own potential. They know their area of expertise and responsibility. They understand their territory, and they carry themselves with quiet authority. They have developed presence. This isn't arrogance, it's assurance. Arrogance says, I'm better than you. Assurance says, I know who I am. Arrogance needs to put others down to feel elevated. Assurance lifts others up because it's secure in its own elevation. Arrogance is loud and obnoxious. Assurance is quiet and confident. Here's a common mistake people make. They think they have to be loud to be heard, but lions don't roar all day. Most of the time, they're silent, conserving their energy, observing their environment, positioning themselves for the right moment. But when they do speak, everyone listens. Quality over quantity. substance over noise, depth over volume. Another mistake people make is thinking that presence means being perfect. But presence isn't about perfection, it's about authenticity. People can sense when you're being real and when you're being fake. They can feel when you're operating from your true self and when you're operating from an image you're trying to project. The most powerful presence comes from being completely comfortable with who you are, your strengths and your weaknesses, your victories and your failures, your gifts and your growth areas. When you stop trying to hide your humanity, you start revealing your authority. Now let's make this practical. How do you live this out daily? How do you develop this lion mentality in your everyday life? Let me give you 3 practices that will transform how you see yourself and how others see you. First practice, the morning declaration. What you speak over yourself in the first few minutes of your day sets the tone for your entire day. Your first thoughts shape your mindset. Your first words program your subconscious. Your first focus determines your trajectory. Most people start their day by checking their phones, reading the news, or immediately engaging with other people's energy. This is backwards. Before you absorb anyone else's thoughts, you need to establish your own thoughts. Before you respond to the world, you need to remember who you are in the world. Here are the specific words I want you to speak over yourself every morning, and I want you to say them out loud. I am not average. I am not ordinary. I was created for greatness, designed for dominance, and destined for purpose. I don't live by accident, I live on purpose. I don't react to life, I respond to calling. I am a lion, and lions don't hide. But don't just say these words, believe them, feel them, let them resonate in your spirit. Let them reprogram years of negative self-talk. Let them overwrite the lies that others have spoken over you or that you have spoken over yourself. Add to this declaration based on your specific situation. I am gifted, and my gifts will make room for me. I am called, and my calling will be fulfilled. I am blessed, and my blessing cannot be stopped. I am loved, and that love makes me unstoppable. I am powerful, and that power will be expressed through me today. Why is this so powerful? Because your subconscious mind believes what you tell it consistently. Most people start their day rehearsing their problems, their fears, their limitations, their excuses. But lions start their day rehearsing their power, their purpose, their possibilities, their potential. Most people begin with their limitations. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough experience. I don't have enough connections. Lions begin with their possibilities. God has given me everything I need for today. I have gifts that can solve problems. I have ideas that can create value. I have a calling that can change lives. The morning declaration does more than just make you feel good. It actually rewires your brain. Neuroscience tells us that the thoughts we think most often become the neural pathways that are strongest in our brains. When you consistently speak positive, powerful, purposeful words over yourself, you're literally creating new pathways of thinking that support your lion mentality instead of undermining it. Second practice, the territory walk. This is a physical exercise that will embody confidence in your body language and posture. Science has proven that how you move affects how you think. How you carry yourself impacts how others see you and how you see yourself. Your physiology influences your psychology. Here's what you do. Every day, take a 20-minute walk, but not just any walk. This isn't exercise for your body. This is training for your spirit. Walk like you own where you're going. Walk like you belong in every space you enter. Keep your head up, looking forward, not down at your feet or at your phone. Keep your shoulders back, chest out, spine straight. Don't rush, but don't drag your feet either. Move with intention. Every step should be deliberate. Every movement should have meaning. Walk with the confidence of someone who knows where they're going and why they're going there. As you walk, practice seeing yourself as others see you. Are you carrying yourself like someone who has something valuable to offer the world? Are you moving like someone who believes in their own worth? Are you positioning your body like someone who expects respect? Why does posture affect psychology? Your body sends signals to your brain constantly. When you slouch, you're telling your brain that you're defeated, tired, or ashamed. When you stand tall, you're telling your brain that you're ready, capable, and confident. When you walk with purpose, you're programming yourself for success. But this isn't just about how you feel, it's about the message you send to everyone around you. People make judgments about your competence, your confidence, and your character within seconds of seeing you. Much of that judgment is based on your body language. Are you communicating strength or weakness? Authority or insecurity? Purpose or confusion? Walking with intention versus moving by accident. Most people move through life reactively. They go where they're pushed instead of where they're called. They drift instead of drive. They wander instead of walk with purpose. But lions move with intention. Every step has meaning. Every movement has purpose. During your territory walk, practice what I call lion awareness. Notice your environment. Observe the people around you. See how they carry themselves. Notice who walks with confidence and who walks with insecurity. Learn from both. Study the body language of authority so you can embody it yourself. Also practice gratitude during this walk. Thank God for your legs that carry you, your eyes that see, your mind that thinks, your heart that beats. Gratitude is one of the fastest ways to shift from a victim mentality to a victor mentality. When you focus on what you have instead of what you lack, you start walking like someone who is blessed instead of someone who is burdened. Third practice, the evening reflection. Before you go to bed, spend 10 minutes asking yourself 3 specific questions. This practice will help you measure your growth in lion mentality and prepare you for even greater success tomorrow. First question, where did I act like a lion today? Be specific. Celebrate those moments. Maybe you spoke up in a meeting when you usually stay quiet. Maybe you set a boundary with someone who was trying to manipulate you. Maybe you took action on a dream instead of just thinking about it. Maybe you encouraged someone else to step into their greatness. Acknowledge when you stood in your authority, when you didn't shrink back, when you lived from your identity instead of your insecurity. Write these moments down. Keep a record of your progress. What gets celebrated gets repeated. Too many people focus only on where they failed and ignore where they succeeded. But lions acknowledge their victories. They build on their strengths. They remember their wins so they can recreate them tomorrow. Second question, where did I act like prey today? Be honest with yourself, but don't condemn yourself. Where did you compromise your values for acceptance? Where did you play small to make others comfortable? Where did you let fear make decisions for you instead of faith? Where did you react instead of respond? Maybe you gossiped about someone to fit in with a group. Maybe you didn't pursue an opportunity because you were afraid of rejection. Maybe you accepted disrespect because you were afraid of confrontation. Maybe you stayed quiet when you should have spoken up. Don't condemn yourself for these moments. Learn from them. Ask yourself, what was I afraid of in that moment? What lie was I believing about myself? What would I do differently if I faced this situation again tomorrow? Remember, even lions have moments when they don't act like lions. The difference is that lions learn from those moments instead of being defined by them. They use their failures as fuel for future success instead of as evidence of permanent limitation. Third question, how will I roar tomorrow? What's one specific way you can step more fully into your lion mentality tomorrow? This isn't about making massive changes, it's about making intentional improvements. Small steps taken consistently lead to significant transformation. Maybe it's having a conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's starting a project you've been postponing. Maybe it's ending a relationship that's been draining your energy. Maybe it's beginning a habit that will improve your health. Maybe it's simply walking into a room differently, speaking with more authority, or carrying yourself with more confidence. Make it specific and measurable. Instead of saying, I'll be more confident tomorrow, say, tomorrow I'll make eye contact and speak clearly in my presentation. Instead of saying, I'll be more assertive, say, tomorrow I'll express my opinion in the team meeting even if others disagree. How do you measure growth in lion mentality? It's not about becoming aggressive or arrogant. It's not about dominating others or demanding attention. It's about becoming authentic and assured. You'll know you're growing when you stop seeking approval and start taking responsibility. You'll know you're changing when you stop making excuses and start making impact. Other signs of growth. You'll find yourself less affected by criticism and less dependent on praise. You'll discover that you're making decisions based on your values instead of other people's opinions. You'll notice that you're speaking up more often and shrinking back less frequently. You'll realize that you're taking more risks and playing fewer victim roles. You'll start attracting different people into your life. People who respect your boundaries instead of trying to cross them. People who celebrate your success instead of being threatened by it. People who challenge you to grow instead of enabling you to stay comfortable. How do you prepare for tomorrow's victories? You end today with gratitude and expectancy. Gratitude for who you are and who you're becoming. Expectancy for what God wants to do through you tomorrow. Lions don't worry about tomorrow. They prepare for it by being fully present today. Spend a few moments before bed visualizing yourself succeeding tomorrow. See yourself walking with confidence, speaking with authority, making decisions with wisdom. See yourself overcoming challenges, seizing opportunities, and making a positive impact on everyone you encounter. This isn't just positive thinking, this is faith-filled expectation. You're not hoping something good might happen. You're expecting it because you know who you are and whose you are. You're not crossing your fingers for luck. You're positioning yourself for blessing. But let me address something important here. Some of you might be thinking, this all sounds good, Myles, but you don't understand my situation. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know the people I have to deal with. You don't know the limitations I face. Let me tell you something. Your circumstances don't determine your character. Your background doesn't dictate your future. Your past doesn't define your potential. Yes, you may have faced rejection, abuse, failure, disappointment, betrayal. Yes, you may be dealing with difficult people, limited resources, health challenges, financial struggles. But here's what I've learned from studying leaders around the world. The greatest lions are not those who never faced adversity. They're those who faced adversity and refused to let it define them. They're those who took their pain and turned it into purpose, their mess into a message, their tests into testimonies. Your struggle is not disqualification for greatness, it's preparation for greatness. Every challenge you've overcome has made you stronger. Every obstacle you've navigated has made you wiser. Every setback you've survived has made you more resilient. The lion mentality doesn't mean you never face opposition. It means you face opposition with confidence in who you are and whose you are. It doesn't mean you never experience fear. It means you feel the fear and move forward anyway. It doesn't mean you never make mistakes. It means you learn from your mistakes and use them as stepping stones to success. Let me tell you about another principle that transformed my understanding of lionship. Lions hunt in prides, but they lead alone. There will be times when you have to make decisions that others don't understand. There will be moments when you have to take stands that others won't support. There will be seasons when you have to walk paths that others won't follow. This is not punishment, this is promotion. Leadership is often lonely because leaders see things before others see them, understand things before others understand them, and move toward things before others are ready to move. If everyone understood your vision, it wouldn't be vision, it would be history. Don't let loneliness convince you to compromise your calling. Don't let isolation tempt you to lower your standards. Don't let misunderstanding cause you to question your assignment. Sometimes you have to roar alone before others find their voice. Sometimes you have to stand alone before others find their courage. Sometimes you have to move alone before others find their motivation. But here's the beautiful thing about lion mentality. When you start living like the lion you were created to be, you give others permission to do the same. When you step into your authority, you inspire others to step into theirs. When you stop hiding your light, you illuminate the path for others to find their light. Your transformation is not just for you, it's for everyone whose life you're meant to touch. Your success is not just about your personal fulfillment, it's about fulfilling your responsibility to be a catalyst for others' greatness. Your roar is not just about finding your voice, it's about helping others find theirs. Let me share with you some practical ways to maintain your lion mentality when the world tries to convince you to live small. First, guard your inputs. What you listen to, watch, read, and consume mentally affects your mindset dramatically. If you're constantly exposing yourself to negative news, gossiping people, complaining friends, and limiting beliefs, you'll find it harder to maintain a lion mentality. Choose your inputs intentionally. Read books that expand your thinking. Listen to music that elevates your spirit. Watch content that inspires your creativity. Surround yourself with people who speak life over you instead of death, possibility instead of limitation, faith instead of fear. Second, practice selective hearing. Not everyone's opinion about your life deserves your attention. Not every criticism requires your consideration. Not every suggestion needs your implementation. Learn to distinguish between constructive feedback from qualified sources and destructive comments from unqualified critics. Lions don't respond to every sound in the jungle. They learn to distinguish between threats that require attention and noises that can be ignored. Develop the wisdom to know the difference between input that will help you grow and input that will distract you from your goals. Third, create what I call lion moments throughout your day. These are intentional pauses where you remind yourself of who you are and whose you are. Maybe it's a moment of prayer before a difficult meeting. Maybe it's a declaration of faith before making an important phone call. Maybe it's a deep breath and a positive affirmation before entering a challenging situation. These micro moments of lion mentality can completely change the trajectory of your day. They help you reset when you start slipping into insecurity. They refocus you when you start getting distracted by comparison. They recharge you when you start feeling depleted by circumstances. Fourth, practice what I call generous authority. True lions don't use their strength to dominate others. They use their strength to protect and serve others. They don't roar to intimidate. They roar to inspire. They don't claim territory to exclude others. They claim territory to create safe spaces where others can flourish. When you embrace your lion mentality, use it to lift others up, not to put them down. Use your voice to speak for those who feel voiceless. Use your influence to create opportunities for those who feel powerless. Use your platform to shine light on those who feel invisible. The strongest lions are those who understand that true strength is demonstrated through service, not selfishness. True authority is proven through empowerment, not oppression. True leadership is measured by how many other leaders you develop, not how many followers you accumulate. Now, let me address those of you who have been hurt by people who claimed to be lions but acted like predators. Maybe you've encountered people who used their authority to abuse instead of bless, to harm instead of heal, to destroy instead of develop. I want you to know that those people were not living in true lion mentality. They were operating in false authority. True lions don't prey on the weak, they protect them. True lions don't use their strength for selfish gain, they use it for service. True lions don't tear others down to build themselves up. They build others up because they're secure in their own position. Don't let someone else's perversion of authority prevent you from stepping into your authentic authority. Don't let someone else's abuse of power keep you from using your power properly. Don't let someone else's failure to be a true lion stop you from becoming the lion you were created to be. The world needs your authentic lion mentality now more than ever. We need people who will stand for truth in a culture of compromise. We need people who will speak with authority in a climate of confusion. We need people who will lead with integrity in a time of moral bankruptcy. We need people who won't back down from their convictions just because those convictions aren't popular. We need people who won't water down their message just because it makes some people uncomfortable. We need people who won't dim their light just because it makes others feel insecure about their darkness. As we come to the end of our time together, I want to leave you with this truth. The lion mentality is not just about personal success, it's about societal transformation. When you live like the lion you were created to be, you don't just change your own life, you change the lives of everyone around you. Your children see a model of what strength with character looks like. Your spouse experiences what it means to be loved by someone who knows their worth. Your friends discover what authentic relationship feels like. Your colleagues witness what integrity in leadership produces. Your community benefits from someone who uses their influence for good. You become what I call a contagious catalyst, someone whose authentic authority inspires others to step into their own. You become a living example that it's possible to be strong and gentle, confident and humble, powerful and kind. But remember this, transformation is a process, not an event. You won't wake up tomorrow feeling like a completely different person. Some days you'll feel like that circus lion who remembered his roar. Other days you might feel like that eagle soaring in the heights. And some days you might still feel like that chicken scratching in the dirt. That's normal. That's human. That's the journey. The key is to keep moving in the right direction. Keep making the right choices. Keep speaking the right words over yourself. Keep walking with the right posture. Keep focusing on the right thoughts. Every day that you choose to live from your identity instead of your insecurity, you're strengthening your lion mentality. Every moment that you respond instead of react, you're developing your authority. Every time you stand for what's right instead of what's convenient, you're building your character. Some of you watching this message are on the verge of a major breakthrough. You've been in preparation for years, developing skills, building character, gaining experience, and now you're about to step into a season of unprecedented favor and influence. This message isn't coincidence, it's confirmation. God is reminding you of who you are before He shows you what you can do. Others of you are in the middle of your greatest challenge. The lions you thought were on your side have turned against you. The territory you thought was secure has been threatened. The roar you thought was strong has been silenced by circumstances. But this message is God's way of reminding you that your identity doesn't change based on your circumstances. You're still a lion even when you're surrounded by hyenas. And some of you are just beginning to realize that there's more inside you than what people have seen. You've been living small, playing safe, staying quiet, but something in your spirit is stirring. You're tired of being invisible when you were created to be significant. You're ready to stop surviving and start thriving. This message is your wake-up call. Wherever you are in your journey, remember this. You are not an accident. You are not a mistake. You are not ordinary. You were created by God, for God, to do something that only you can do. You have gifts that the world needs. You have a voice that must be heard. You have a calling that must be fulfilled. The lion in you has been sleeping long enough. It's time to wake up. It's time to remember who you are. It's time to take your rightful place in the kingdom. It's time to claim your territory. It's time to develop your presence. It's time to find your roar. Remember this. You weren't born to blend in. You were born to stand out. You weren't created to follow. You were created to lead. You weren't designed to survive. You were designed to thrive. The lion in you isn't sleeping anymore. It's awakening. And when a lion awakens, everything around it changes. Here's your declaration, and I want you to say it with me right now. I am not average. I am not ordinary. I was created for greatness, designed for dominance, and destined for purpose. I don't live by accident. I live on purpose. I don't react to life. I respond to calling. I am a lion, and lions don't hide. Say it again. I am a lion, and lions don't hide. One more time with conviction. I am a lion, and lions don't hide. If this message awakens something in you, if it stirred the lion that's been sleeping in your spirit, if it reminded you of who you really are, then I need you to do 3 things right now. First, subscribe to this channel because we're just getting started. This is just the beginning of your transformation journey. There's so much more wisdom, insight, and practical teaching that I want to share with you. Don't miss out on the messages that could change your life. Second, hit that like button if you're ready to live like the lion you were created to be. Let me know that this message resonated with your spirit, that it spoke to something deep inside you, that it gave you permission to step into your greatness. Third, and this is the most important one, I want you to go to the comment section right now and tell me, what's one area of your life where you're ready to stop being a sheep and start being a lion? Where do you need to develop your authority? Where do you need to claim your territory? Where do you need to find your roar? Be specific. Make it real. Write it down, because when you write it down, you're making a commitment. When you declare it publicly, you're creating accountability. When you put it out there, you're taking the first step toward making it happen. Your transformation starts with your declaration. Your change begins with your commitment. Your breakthrough starts with your boldness to name where you need to grow. Some of you need to be lions in your marriage. Stop being passive and start being present. Some of you need to be lions in your career. Stop accepting less than your worth and start demanding what you deserve. Some of you need to be lions in your faith. Stop doubting God's plan and start trusting His purpose. Some of you need to be lions in your health. Stop making excuses and start making changes. Some of you need to be lions in your finances. Stop living paycheck to paycheck and start building wealth. Some of you need to be lions in your relationships. Stop accepting disrespect and start requiring respect. Whatever area it is for you, name it, claim it, commit to changing it. Your future self is depending on the decision you make right now. And here's my final challenge to you. Don't just consume this message, become this message. Don't just watch this transformation, experience this transformation. Don't just agree with these principles, apply these principles. The world doesn't need another person who knows about lion mentality. The world needs another person who lives lion mentality. The world doesn't need another person who talks about greatness. The world needs another person who demonstrates greatness. The world doesn't need another person who admires authority. The world needs another person who exercises authority. That person is you. That lion is you. That leader is you. That world changer is you. Until next time, remember, the world is waiting for your roar. Don't keep them waiting any longer.